You know, Halloween Kills was just delayed. Can we watch Scream instead? Great. I'm glad we could come to an agreement. Yo, Mikey! Did you forget to pay the electricity bill?
Your pizza's here, sir. Okay. Sir, I need actual money for this.
Alright, I heard some scraping.
Ouch.
Oh, hey, I'm the pizza guy.
Ouch. Ouch.
I'm gonna need you to stay here for a second. It wasn't me. I'm just a pizza guy. I'm just here. I promise. He's a serial killer. Can't you see that? Police. Was he here before? What they meant? Oh. Hi, buddy.
Oh, hey, Jason. Help me up. Seen Scream 10.
Hey, I know you're kind of busy, but can I watch with you? I'm kind of trying to dodge the police and also scary movie.
Howdy, partner.
Hey everybody, right before the video starts, I just wanted to go over the new Stalky merch. We have new holiday merch. We have 3 new designs for the holiday season. We have a Cozy Myers, we have Stalky the Snowman, and we have a Happy Holidays kind of theme going on with our third design, but also I've lowered the prices for all of t-shirts and hoodies. I've lowered all of that. We've also have mugs, socks, pillows, blankets. We have a lot more stuff in there now, and I think we even have some stickers. My personal favorite, and the one that I wear the most, is the locating the blendette design. It has a back and front print. I think it looks pretty nice, and they're really cozy. I haven't gotten the t-shirts. I've gotten the Hydrate Stalky hoodie, and I have the locating the blendette hoodie, and they are very comfortable. If you're interested, you can either, there should be a link on screen as of right now, or there will be a link in the description, or they'll be linked in a pinned comment. But with that out of the way, let's go ahead and go into the review. Hey everyone, so this was supposed to come out about a month ago on Halloween, and you may be asking, Stalky, why is it the end of November? And to that I say, well, there is this little construct called time, and despite any of our actions, it continues to move forward. I don't really have a reason as to why I didn't finish this earlier, other than procrastination. Now, with it being the end of November, let's discuss Halloween 2018. I'm not going to do a plot synopsis other than maybe some brief moments from the movie to help illustrate my opinion, so I'm not going to be going through it scene by scene discussing what I like about every single scene, but I will be like bringing up scenes and being like, oh yeah, I like this scene because of this scene. That's basically what I'm saying. I'll just be talking about like highlights throughout the movie and my overall opinion as to whether it gets certain things right and wrong. And please don't get offended or feel personally attacked. If I state something that I feel is negative about the movie, but you yourself do not feel it is negative, great. That's your opinion, and nobody can take that from you. I'm not here to check off anybody's check marks in ways such as, alright, Stalky's gonna talk about how phenomenal this scene is, and I can't wait for him to rip this scene apart. I might have the same opinion, and I might not. Who knows? Only I know, because it's my opinion, but I don't know your opinion. Now then, enough of the beginning mumbo jumbo. I'll go ahead and talk about parts that happen within the first act of the movie. Like I mentioned before, not going to be going into it scene by scene, but I think a good place to start is with the beginning, because, you know, that is kind of where the movie starts. And I really enjoyed the beginning. I think they found a clever way to introduce newcomers to the franchise as to what is happening, while also keeping it interesting for longtime fans by showing us where our beloved characters are now. And I personally like the two reporters. I may be a little biased, since one of the reporters' name is Aaron, and is also a ginger, and I happen to have both of these things, so in a way, I am in a Halloween movie. I guess. The opening for the movie is fantastic. Short, sweet, and lets us know that what Michael has been up to, which, as you would expect, isn't much. And unlike lots of people, I actually do not mind seeing him without the mask. Most of the time we don't see the entirety of his face. We either see a portion of his face, and if I recall correctly, you never see the eye that still functions correctly. You always see the dead eye, unless I miss something. But I watched the movie twice before running this, and I didn't catch it. I think they had just the right balance of showing a certain amount without showing too much, and I love the scenes leading up to Myers getting his mask back, and just the bits and teases with him in the background, as well as his actual escape filled with tension, lots of tension. Which is what I love about Halloween. You never see him in this scene, you just see the bodies he's left behind as we follow a vulnerable little 12-year-old searching for his father, not knowing where Myers is going to pop up. Absolutely fantastic scene. Going through, like, you know, the little situations, the build-up, and the guy screaming, run, and all that. Fun time. Very fun time. And, of course, like, having his dad go first, so he's all by himself, so he's just little, vulnerable, little child that will probably, maybe, possibly, probably, most likely, get stabbed. Fantastic scene. And when we eventually do follow him, we see him for the very first time kill a child. This is a really bold move in my opinion. It sets the bar that nobody is safe. This leaves the audience paranoid as to who could possibly die in this movie. At least it did for me. Like, for example, when he eventually encounters the baby in the crib, it left me thinking, is he gonna kill the kid? But it, like, sets the bar for it, so, like, the entire movie you're on edge, and I honestly at one point thought Laurie was just gonna kick the bucket, because this was before they confirmed the next two movies, so we weren't just like, ah, she'll be in Halloween Kills, rightio. And going back to the build-up to Myers getting his mask, I like to think he wasn't necessarily following the reporters at first. I like to think he found them again at Judas' grave and decided to follow them from there. Like, he was just going to do his normal thing, get Judas' tombstone into his hole, killing the town, you know, like Myers does. And then he happened to come across the reporters at the grave and decided to get his mask back. That's what I like to think, since he wouldn't have really had much idea as to where they could have been. And then there's the gas station, which is... The scene is fantastic. Love it. Viewers being able to follow every single one of Myers' movements leading up to him going to the bathroom, watching him go off screen to kill the mechanic for his famous coveralls, and just seeing him follow them in general made me a happy camper. Like, the whole, like, seeing him within the background, not really necessarily, like, face front and center all the time. I enjoyed that quite a bit. And then the tension with every step he takes in the bathroom, the absence of music as he slowly approaches Donna, and then the teeth. Ooh, the teeth. Such a Myers thing to do. Why did he do it? Who knows? No one understands the guy. You don't, I don't, nobody does. Sartain definitely doesn't. He's got his own sense of humor. It gives him layers, like an onion. The only gripe I have with this scene is Donna towards the end of it. She very much has enough time to either help Aaron out or run for the hills. Instead, she just kind of does nothing, lets her lover die. You know, kind of whatever. But it's a spooky movie. Things like that happen. And seeing Myers using Aaron as a battery ram is pretty great. Very much enjoying that, very, very much. All of the introduction stuff, I love. I think it's really great. And as much as I love talking about Myers and his scenes, I guess I have to talk about, like, the other characters, because, you know, the movie does have more than one, unfortunately, I guess, whatever. So let's go ahead and talk about them. I'm going to go for another character I think they did really well. Before I get into some characters I'm a bit iffy with. The Laurie Strode, the big final gal. I really love the direction they went with her. Being absolutely obsessed with Myers to the point where she neglects just about everything else. I can't say I have had all of my friends killed by a maniac. This is not an invitation to fate to do so. But I imagine this is definitely a reaction I would take, wanting nothing more than his existence to be shattered, especially if I thought that the man that did it wasn't really a man, but simply evil. Wanting to ensure that what happens to her doesn't happen to anyone else, she prepares non-stop for his inevitable escape, and up to a certain point, you can tell she's hell-bent on bringing Myers down. The scene I'm talking about is the bus scene. As Myers is being transferred over to another location, we see Laurie with a gun ready to go ham. I know full well that she intended to pull that bus over and end him. I think she either stopped for one of two reasons. Either one, the words of her family got to her and she decided to let him go for their sake, or two, she was scared. Or it could just be both, I guess, or whatever. I think it's more likely both. I think this just because right before the scene ends, we see her screaming in rage. I find that is her getting upset at herself, not finding the strength to do what needs to be done. And when we see her in the next scene, we don't see her trying to move on. We see her nearly immediately start talking about Myers again. I think this more feeds into the her being scared theory rather than her doing it for her family. She probably used her family as a scapegoat in her head as to why she shouldn't do it. And I love that about her in this movie. She's going through the entire movie trying not to become Michael Myers. Because unlike Myers, she has emotion, she has fear. She can't just put everything aside and kill him, no matter how much she wants to. She cares about her family. The first thing she does when she finds out Allison is missing and Myers is on the loose is to get a hold of Allison, not just to kill Myers. If she were to fall fully into the deep void, she would ironically become the very thing she despises. So, to wrap this up, I absolutely love what they did with Laurie in this movie. Alright, with Laurie done, I want to go back into Myers, because I love him and can't go 5 minutes without talking about him. It's a real disease, I'm sorry. Like Laurie, I think they absolutely nailed Myers character-wise. They made him more than just a dumb killer going from A to B. In this movie, he is a terrifying force of nature that kills just about anything he comes into contact with. And they removed the sister plotline, which for me makes the movie that much greater. You don't fully know what's going on in his head and makes it more interesting. For example, in this movie, you don't really know if Myers cares about Laurie or not. The first time he sees Laurie, he doesn't even go for her. He goes away from her thinking, why is this crazy lady shouting my name? He probably doesn't even recognize her after 40 years. I mean, he could. We don't know what's going on in his head. Maybe he does recognize her, but doesn't really care. He very much doesn't express with his actions that he cares about Lori and wants to clean up the job right out of the get-go. In my little headcanon, he went for her in the original because she reminded him of Judith. But all grown up in age, he doesn't see that connection as much anymore. So when he sees Lori screaming his name in the streets, he's like, why does this girl know my name? And why does she want my attention? It opens Myers up. He's not limited to just killing his bloodline. It makes him much more unpredictable when he reaches the streets of Haddonfield knowing he isn't going to beeline straight for Lori. It's also the reason they had to drive him straight to Lori, which was Dr. Sartain's whole purpose in the movie, just being a little guideline for Myers, getting him out of the bus, all that kind of stuff, getting him really into the action. I briefly mentioned this, but I like that they gave him his old sense of humor back. Dressing people as a ghost, dropping teeth from the ground, making jack-o'-lanterns out of human heads, and doing a good old monster in the closet roleplay to spook poor Julian. He's not just kill, like, you know, A, B, kill here and this and that. He has, like, once again, he's got those onion layers, and I appreciate it. I like it. The only thing I don't like about him in the movie is in just about every single scene, you know exactly where he's going to come from. The only scene I'd say really plays on the fear of the unknown, like not knowing where he's going to show up, is the scene towards the end at Lori's fortress in which she searches every room one by one looking for him. I was on the edge of my seat wondering where he was going to come from that. I'd say there's a similar feeling when the kid is looking for his dad at the beginning, but other than these two scenes, you really know where Myers is going to come from just about every single time. It feels very Myers shows up, victim sees him, victim dies, without a ton of tension. You basically know exactly what's going to happen. Like, you can just kind of play it out in your head. That does not mean I think a few of these scenes are bad. On the contrary, my favorite scene in the whole franchise is Myers coming back to Haddonfield and just going on a little killing spree throughout it. I relish in that scene. I've seen it so much, but I think there should have been more of not knowing where he is. Having your mind play tricks on you. It's like Loomis says in the first movie. And this isn't an exact quote, but in the first movie he says something along the lines of, if you tell them, they'll see him around every street corner. And that's all of the quote I remember, so that's what we're gonna go with. I'm not gonna look it up because reasons, but that's kind of the important part. But basically, as the audience, we know he's out there. We don't need to know where he is at all time, because like the officers looking for him in the first movie, if we know he's there, we're just gonna assume he's around every corner, around every footstep, around every street, whatever the quote was. A lot of the time in a horror film, the scariest parts is what the audience doesn't see, letting your mind start speculating and playing tricks on you, such as the imagery of seeing the dude with his broken jaw and all his teeth missing. We know Myers did it, but we don't know how, so our mind speculates as to what the monster did to get those teeth. If we were just shown it, it'd be gross. And, you know, that's scary in its own right, but it doesn't allow our brains to really go wild. Once again, though, this is not me saying every scene with Myers should be like this. It's good to have a balance between the two things. And in this movie, I think there's just way more of knowing exactly where Myers is than those tension-filled Ninja Myers moments. But overall, I love how Myers is handled in this movie. Alright, for the rest of the characters, I'm not going to go super in-depth with any of them, as I don't find them to be as complex or as big as Lori or Myers. We'll start with the biggest of them, Allison. Allison seems like she's supposed to be the kind of like Lori. She's this smart girl, but she's also a bit of a party animal herself. She, like the rest of her family, wants Lori to move on from Myers and just wants to see her G-Ma come back into her life. I don't really have too much else to say about her. She, like Karen, eventually has to learn that they can't just tuck away demons. They eventually rear their ugly heads in reality, but other than that, I don't think there's a lot going on with her. And next, speaking of Karen, we'll talk about Karen. She doesn't really seem to do anything substantial, and I feel could have had a lot more going on with her character. She spends a lot of the movie in denial of Myers and wants to keep her mother away from her family as much as possible. She spends most of the movie very unemotional, and this isn't the actress's fault. I think this is very much in character for what they were going for. I think it would have been interesting if she actually got on the Myers believers train earlier on in the movie, and once she does, her character has a flip. It makes her feel really alive, contrast to her very kind of unemotional self throughout most of the movie. Kind of like the opposite of Laurie. While it absolutely destroys Laurie being obsessed with it, for Karen, it would be almost a guilty pleasure of hers. It's what she grew up knowing, and once she gets into it, a noticeable change in her tone would start. Much more leader-like, take charge, energetic. I imagine the change would happen something like this. When they can't get a hold of Allison, she's the first one to take action. Other than phone calls, maybe the police decline or something like that, but Laurie will back her up and decide to go looking for her. They drive around and eventually find Myers chasing Allison. And this time, there will be an actual chase scene! No Myers just vanishing after Allison sees him. A proper chase scene this time. Anyways, Allison is getting chased, making scared noises as people getting chased by knife-wielding maniacs do. They both step out of the car, and it's important that Karen pulls out her gun first. Speaking of which, before Laurie and Karen leave, Karen will ask for the gun Laurie offered earlier, showing she is now beginning to put her denial behind her and is more accepting that Myers is a real thing and is an actual threat that they should take seriously. At this point, she still thinks Myers is a man, though. Anyways, back to the scene. They see Myers chasing Allison. Karen takes aim and hits him dead in the chest. Myers collapses. Allison rushes over, still making scared, getting chased by a knife-wielding maniac noises. And in that little instance, Allison gives Laurie a sort of smirk. Almost as a, I told you the boogeyman wasn't real kind of look. You know the one. Allison blocks their line of sight for just a few moments. Laurie quickly pushes Allison out of the way, gun in hand, but when she pushes her out of the way, the shape is gone. Laurie now returns the look back to Karen while Karen stares in shock. From this moment on, she is in full acceptance, and I think it makes her character a bit more interesting. Plus, there'd be an actual chase scene. There is not one proper chase scene in the entire movie. This would be an easy fix for both of these problems. Alright, so Ray.
Oh man, I got peanut butter on my penis.
Cameron is the typical sort of bad boyfriend, which is notable as his father is Lanny. I imagine he'll get more in the sequel. Oscar has a cringe scene. Before the scene, I thought he was funny. Now all I see is cringe. Dave likes Alakazam. Vicky is a fun little side character. I love her dynamic with Julian, and really makes you enjoy both of these characters. I would have, once again, preferred a proper chase scene with her. I think it would have been great for her as well, since you actually care about her after her interactions with Julian, and she's a cutie, not gonna lie, she's pretty cute. Julian is a funny kid. I would have toned down the humor just a bit though. It sucks out all the tensions once Myers shows up. But for the clipping toenails a little bit, I would have definitely kept all of that still in. Kid's a riot. Sartain. Okay, so like obviously there's the very big cringe scene where he puts on the mask. That should not have happened. That's pretty weird. Like I mentioned earlier, is a sort of guideline for Myers, getting him out of the bus and then leading him to Laurie. But I actually really like the approach they went for him. Complete opposite from Loomis. Unlike Loomis, he feels there's something in Myers that can be understood. He doesn't want to actually understand Myers, he wants Myers to make sense, which I think can be a lot like some people wanting Myers to have a motive. He doesn't have one. There's hints that there might be something, but nothing concrete. There's nothing to react, no motivation. Does he want Laurie? Does he even care about Laurie? Probably not. But they hint he might recognize her to some degree, keeping that mystery alive. Sartain feels there has to be something that makes sense. Something that makes Myers tick. This later comes crashing down on him in denial. Officer Hawkins is pretty cool, serving as a nice voice of reason. The new sheriff definitely doesn't take Myers as seriously as he does, which can make it frustrating for the audience. I know Officer Brackett is coming in the next movie, and that really excites me. I cannot wait to see that. It would have been really cool to have Brackett as the sheriff in this movie, but oh well. Alright, so with all of that done, I'm going to talk about lights, because who doesn't like lights? Now this movie uses lots of orange hues throughout the movie, and personally, I don't like this too much. It makes the movie feel a lot warmer than I think Halloween Night should feel, and makes the shape's presence feel warmer. Personally, not a huge fan of it. I get that it's more orange for the sake of the themes and such, and I think this is fine for Halloween morning, but once it gets closer to night, it should become a bit more blue to really make it feel colder. In the first movie, it made the scenes with Myers just feel super cold, just giving the feeling of his cold, unnatural self. Give it a real special feeling. I love the balance they are doing with Halloween Kills, with the houses being the warm spots throughout the city, and the streets being the familiar blue we all know and love. A minor complaint, but I think it could have made the movie look a bit nicer, but that's just my opinion. The music is, of course, fantastic. My personal favorites being the new fan favorite, The Shape Hunts Allison, but I also love The Shape Returns, being a great rendition of the main theme, but all the music in the movie sounds phenomenal. With all of that being said, I really love this movie. I always bounce between this being my second favorite or third, always competing with Halloween 2. It gets a ton right in my opinion, but has some hiccups here with some humor lasting a bit too long, such as the brownie scene with the cops, but overall, this is a really solid Halloween movie. I know movie reviewers do the whole score thingy, so I give this 8 spooky jack-o'-lanterns. Out of what you may say, that's up to personal interpretation. Thank you all so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.
Stop repositioning the knife.